John Fredericks Show. Joining us now is Sheriff David Clarke, America's Sheriff. He's also Senior Advisor to WeBuildTheWall.us. That's WeBuildTheWall.us. Hey, Sheriff, great to have you with us.
Thanks, John. It's great to be on with you. I don't think the Stros got lucky last night. They had to grind it out. That's what happens in the postseason. Sometimes it's ugly, but you grind it out and win. I wouldn't want to bank on these Stros coming back home for the final two games. I think they need to knock the Yankees out in New York.
Well, I don't think we're going to win 3 in a row in New York, but the Yankees' strategy, which is kind of the Rays' strategy of all these relief pitchers, is getting exposed. I mean, when they can't get a starter to go past 4 innings, it's tough to keep winning games in a 7-game series. The Rays almost got away with it in a 5-gamer, but you go to 7 games. If this game gets rained out tonight, which it is, right, it's a 100% chance of rain, it favors the Yankees for a day, but then it favors the Astros after that because New York is going to have to play 4 games in a row, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and they don't have a starter that can get past 5 innings. So eventually your bullpen wears down. Our starters go into the 7th or the 8th. So I think it favors the Astros. But, look, Sheriff, you got to play the game. And I thought the Astros, I thought they, like you put it, it was a grinding game yesterday. And basically, I really thought the wild pitch in the 7th inning where the Astros are 1 for 20. Get this. 1 for 20 in this series with runners in scoring position. And they scored 2 runs on a wild pitch and a sac fly, right? The 1 for 20. I thought that changed the game. So we'll see how it plays out. I guess tonight will get rained out. But what do you think of those Nats?
Yeah, they caught fire toward the end of the season. I think they ended the season winning 8 in a row. So they had some momentum going in. They were playing with house money when they come back to beat the Brewers in the late innings, but they were playing with house money out in L.A. Nobody predicted that they'd beat the Dodgers, but you're playing with house money. You have nothing to lose. You're more relaxed. You go into this thing, and just play baseball, and that's what they did. After beating the Dodgers, I think they got everybody's attention.
Right.
But there were many who were saying, watch out for the Nats, going into the postseason, and it's coming to be true.
Well, they can certainly match the Astros if we get to the World Series with Scherzer and Strasburg can match Verlander and Cole. And then right now, what was his name? Who was the guy that pitched the one-hitter, right? Anibal Sanchez. The Nats, I mean, you get that kind of starting pitching, and you're going to be tough. It should be a great series. But, the Astros up 2-1. It's a good thing. I'd rather be up 2-1 than down 2-1, but there's a lot of baseball remaining. And, that one of these games, the Yankees are going to hit 7 or 8 homers and crush us. So we'll have to see how it goes. I loved your op-ed in Town Hall. Trump is right on Syria. I just want to read our audience the opening 2 paragraphs, which I thought was great. It goes, President Trump has done what few people thought was possible in Washington, D.C., He's gotten Democrats and Republicans to agree on something. Too bad it's an inconsequential agreement that doesn't affect the American people, like the USMCA or maybe solving the healthcare crisis or energy policy that would enable people to find abundant, affordable energy. No. Instead, Democrats and Republicans stand united in their opposition to bringing our kids home from Syria and to perpetuate these endless wars. The criticism the president is getting in D.C. inside the Beltway, Sheriff, is just, it is stunning. I've never seen anything like it, and it's relentless, and we're abandoning the Kurds, and like you said in your article, it's like the end of the world. Elaborate on your piece and why you thought this was a great decision that Trump made, Sheriff.
Yeah, and it took a lot of courage, too, because anytime, there's always political fallout. It's easy to get into a war. It's harder to get out of one. And there's always political fallout. You saw it happen to Barack Obama when he pulled troops out of Iraq. And I'm not going to get into whether, that was the right decision or not, but I understand what the difficult decision it is for the commander-in-chief. All you get out of Washington, D.C. is sky is falling rhetoric. Look, I believe in American military superiority. When you ask people what the mission is, it's got to be a mission. When you're going to commit U.S. lives, U.S. soldiers to the battlefield, there better be a mission. It better be specific. And when the mission's over, they need to come home. Now, obviously that creates a vacuum, but I think that could be better filled by somebody else. We're starting to use our troops as peacekeepers and nation builders. That's not what the military is for. The military is to fight and win wars. These are war fighters, not peacekeepers. They're in harm's way in a area of the world that is a disaster. Mm-hmm. All right? Syria is a dumpster fire, for heaven's sakes. Nothing can be fixed in Syria. Let somebody else. You got the Russians in there. You got Iran in there. You have the Kurds in there. You have all these factions in there. Nothing is going to be fixed in Syria. As long as Assad stays in power, and that could have been a goal, to remove him from power like they did with Hussein. But then after that, it's time to come home. I'm not a fan of endless wars in terms of cost and lives. And the people in Washington, D.C., they don't think about this. The people on the Hill, many, not all, some of them have sons and daughters that are in the military, but many do not. And they never think of the cost of this stuff, to fight these endless wars. So right. I think that diplomacy is better now that the president is engaged with the leader of Turkey and he's threatening sanctions. Sometimes that's better than committing American lives. And like I said, the costs become astronomical. It was just time to get out of Syria. As the president said yesterday, John, he said, we were only supposed to be in Syria for a short period of time when this thing started. And I would challenge anybody in Washington, D.C., if I were testifying on the Hill, I'd say, what's the mission in Syria? And you'd get some blank stares. Or you'd get some, a platitude about national interest. I go, well, what's the national interest? Well, ISIS. ISIS was defeated. Well, they might come back. Yeah, they might come back, but then you can do airstrikes on those terror camps. You can do cruise missiles. You can do things that are a lot less expensive, and not only in dollars, but in American lives.
Didn't President Clinton turn a war around with no ground troops in Bosnia just by carpet bombing? I mean, look, it can be done, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, if ISIS comes back, get your planes there and bomb them into oblivion. But you're right. I mean, they went into Syria. There was no end game. There was no end game in Afghanistan. There was no end game in Iraq. They go into these wars. There's no end game, and we're always sold a bill of goods. That's the thing about this. We're sold a bill of goods by the warmongers and the neocons, Sheriff. But what they say is never true. I'm going to ask Kira to get this. Kira, there's a clip yesterday from Rand Paul. See if you can find it. And it was a classic. He said, Lindsey Graham has been wrong about every foreign policy decision in the last 3 decades. And then he started rattling them off. And I'm thinking to myself, I heard the clip. I'm like, yeah, Paul's right. I mean, there's no end game, Sheriff.
Yeah, and you got your neocons, and sometimes, there's an area of the world, and there are some places in the world where Americans have vital interests. They do not have a vital interest in Syria or in other parts of the Middle East that's been at war with each other for over 2,000 years. So, you look at these things, and there's got to be something in between being a peacenik and being a neocon. And that's what I try to do is, find something in the middle that makes sense from all perspectives. Like I said, I believe in the U.S. military superiority. I believe that there are areas of the world where we should commit to the military, but for a specific mission to fight and win a war, not to nation build, not to train foreign troops. By the way, that's wishful thinking because it happened in Iraq after the Iraq war. The United States stayed over there to train Iraqi troops to defend their own country, and then when they turned them loose, they got run over by ISIS. They stole all of our equipment. They damn near overran the new government. The United States had to go back in and straighten things out because training these troops, these foreign troops, like I said, is wishful thinking. So, at some point, you have to start having these discussions on the Hill. But if you don't have public support for this crap, and it always wanes as time goes on, all right? It sounds good at the beginning, right? Iraq. Let's go topple Hussein. Okay, that sounds good. Let's go in there and do it. But then let's come home and let the UN. That's the UN. If you read their charter, I talked about that in my piece. I realize the UN is useless. However, their charter specifically says that their job is to be a peacekeeper. Article 1 of their charter, it says to maintain international peace and security, and to that end to take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats to the peace and for the suppression of acts of aggression. Now, that sounds like neat stuff, right? Well, if they're not going to fulfill what they were designed to be, why the hell are we supporting the United Nations with resources?
That's the question, right? Where's the UN here? And why are we giving them money when they don't even fulfill their basic charter? And, Sheriff, you nailed it. The other thing is we're getting criticism from our other NATO allies, Germany, France, Greece, Italy. Have they provided anything? Is there a troop there? Why don't they send troops? France has got plenty of troops to send. So does Germany. We got U.S. forces stationed there. They've got troops. Why don't they send anybody? Why is it up to us?
Yeah. I call these countries like this code holders. Hey, America, we'll hold your code. You go on in there and do some fighting. Right. Europe's got to step up to the plate. That's why when I say the United Nations, that is a conglomeration of nations and militaries around the world. And so, it's time for them to put their troops at risk, put their troops in harm's way, and not just troops, but money. But no, let's let America do it. Hey, nobody else wants to do it. Let's get the Americans to do it. And that's why I said Trump is right. At some point, everybody else has to step up to the plate. But I'll tell you right now, Syria is a wasteland, and there is no vital interest. There is no national interest for the United States in Syria.
Why did we go there in the first place? Do you even remember?
That's my point. There was no specific mission. I was hearing about ISIS is, starting some terror camps, but that wasn't it. It was really about not Hussein, but Assad using chemical weapons. That was the original thing. Remember Obama and his red line?
Right.
Okay. So it was really about Assad, and so if we went into Syria, there should have been. And I'm not a military expert, but I'll tell you what I know about missions, being in law enforcement, because we conducted them all the time, and they better be specific, and you better go in there and do it, and then get the hell out of there and find somebody else to come in and take over and clean it up and nation build and all these other things. But if they weren't going to topple Assad, then we should have gone in there.
Exactly. There was no reason to go in there in the first place. And then remember we had that program where we were going to train anti-Assad volunteers or something. Remember that? And it cost like hundreds of millions of dollars, and we trained like 25 people at a cost of $2 million each. Remember that? I mean, I can't remember.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, the thing has been a complete disaster, Sheriff, since day one. We're with Sheriff David Clarke, America's Sheriff. You can follow him at America's Sheriff. You can go to his website, americasheriff.com. He's also senior advisor to webuildthewall.us, webuildthewall.us. All right, Sheriff, let's shift gears a minute. As you predicted last week, Pelosi not holding a vote on a legitimate impeachment hearing, Rudy Giuliani, along with other people in the administration, saying we're not going to deal with your subpoenas because this whole thing is illegitimate. Why doesn't you just hold a vote?
Yeah, they're handing out subpoenas like they're M&Ms. It's just one after another. This is just harassment. That's all it is. It's political hijinks using the legal system. A subpoena is a legal process. And, generally I would say, hey, if you get a subpoena, you should honor it. But again, if the government's not legitimate, if the process is not legitimate, why should the American people subject themselves to it? I say the same thing about runaway courts. If the courts are going to engage in political hijinks, they become illegitimate. And when an entity like a court of law or a Congress is viewed as illegitimate by the American people are going to thumb their nose at it. So, all they're doing is this endless, we're subpoenaing these records. We want to have this guy testify, that guy testify. It has nothing to do with what their true intent is. It and their true intent is to undo the 2016 election. So they're playing games while the important stuff. By the way, you know what? Our power grid in the United States, our power grid is falling apart, and there is going to be a catastrophe with this a power grid unless they start to update it. But these aren't the things that Congress is working on, which they should be. The trade agreement you and I talked about, they should go ahead and ratify those things. No, they want to play political games and engage in drama and theater, and this is just not good for the United States. It's not good. It's not in the best interest of the American people. I don't want to hear from Giuliani besides that.
Either do I. I just want to get on to the country's business, like USMCA and lower prescription drug prices. We're running out of time, but I got to get your predictions. All right, Astros, Yankees, who wins?
Well, I think the Astros pull it out.
How many games?
I think you can do it in 6.
Sheriff says Astros in 6. John says Astros in 6. Astros, Nats, who wins?
Man, I'll tell you. That's a tough one. Nats are hot. That'd be a great series. It really would. I'm not ready to pick a winner yet.
Astros.
Ask me next week.
7. Astros in 7 over the Nets. Epic series. John Fredericks Radio Network, but the Sheriff picks Astros in 6. I love it.